back everyone. I have big plans for the future, and many of them will require 18th century stays. So that's what we'll be making today. And because I really wasn't feeling this project, I decided to make it fun and a little bit challenging for myself by hand painting this beautiful linen fabric I'm gonna make the stays out of. So I'm gonna go collect some ideas, make some plans, and get back to you when it's time to paint. I think I'm ready to paint now. I made a little mood board of the colors I want to use, and I made a sort of a concept of how I want to paint it or how I wanted it to look. I think it's the second one that I like better. I bought all my paints, and I have this really ugly frame that I made a couple years ago for another project, which should work as all the little pieces fit on it just about. So here's my attempt from last night. It didn't turn out quite bad. I really like the colors of it, but I'm not very satisfied with these little flowers. They're quite puny. I think I will come up with something else to paint on the bottom of it. Maybe landscapes like I originally imagined. And also the frame I was using was a complete bust. It really didn't work out at all. I think this fabric was just too strong for it to contain, and it kind of got stuck to the bottom of it, and well, let me show you what happened. There is cardboard on the fabric. So I need a new plan, which is this frame that I found in the attic. It seems big enough actually, so I'll just have to come up with a way of putting the fabric onto it, and I think it will work. I'm using the American Duchess 18th century stays pattern from Simplicity that I traced onto the fabric, so I knew where to paint. So I was kind of afraid that this might happen, and that is why I started painting with the back panels, because I thought that with some practice I will probably get better. And I did, which is great, but also now these panels don't match at all. I might have to like sort of fix this part a little, so it has more of the style of this part. Anyway, hopefully now that I have some practice in, the middle parts will look much better. We'll see though. The only issue is that now I will have to match this panel's pattern to this one's, because these two are the two front panels, and it will be really visible if it doesn't match. So pray for me. After letting it dry, I retraced the pattern pieces and cut them out.
Oh my god, look at this. Da, da, da. It fits perfectly. Okay. Well, this is close enough.
I also cut an inner layer from the same fabric that I will use for flatlining. I marked all the boning channels onto these pieces. Then I pinned the inner and outer layers together and sew along the markings to create the channels. Now it's finally time to see if the paintings lined up or not, as it is time to assemble the pieces into their final form. I ironed all the seams flat and here's the dramatic reveal. There's quite a couple of mistakes. But no worries, nothing a couple of layers of paint can't solve. Okay, crisis averted. Now we can go on to tacking down the seams. While I was sewing, I inserted boning into the channels around the seams, just to make sure that I don't by mistake catch the outer layer fabric. Then I cut the boning to size, which in this case the pattern calls for zip ties, so that's what I used. And these are the biggest zip ties I could find. And I know that in America you can get much thicker ones, but I guess that tracks, as everything is bigger in America. I used a light blue cotton to make the lining, and this time the assembly went much faster. I pasted the lining to the stays wrong sides together. I used the dark brown cotton cut on the bias to make tons of bias tape using my magical bias tape making device from AliExpress. I started with the top edge of the stays, as they seemed like it will be the easier task, and painstakingly pinned my bias tape right sides together. Only to realize that it's better if I just sew as I go, as around the corners I can adjust the tension much easier that way. And oops, I forgot to finish the middle back opening, so let's do that now quickly, by folding it back twice and felling it down by hand. Then I folded the tape inwards and carefully, so I only catch the inner layers, sewed it down by hand.
Then I repeated the same steps on the lower scalloped edge, and I was right to dread this part, as it was one of the hardest things I ever done. I had to redo it a couple of times before I got down the right tension and the curves with my sewing machine. By the way, Retread It has a really nice tutorial that helped me in case you are in the same shoe as me. But unfortunately, otherwise the only advice I can give you is just to keep doing it until you get it right, going as slowly with your machine as you can. Folding it back nicely is just as hard, but what I found out worked was ironing the scallop parts first and then the little middle points. That's over with. We can relax a little bit by making a couple dozen eyelets by hand. After marking their placements, I used an awl to make the holes. I chose this mid-brown embroidery thread to kind of match the earth, but also contrast the sky of the landscape painting. The pattern calls for a strap that you tie around the waist, but I thought it would be such a shame to cover any part of my landscape, so I decided to reuse this strap pattern from a previous corset I made. I used 2 layers of the same linen fabric I used for the stays and bi-staped it in the same way. I serged the lower edge of it and sewed it on. I made eyelets on the straps and the stays and closed it with a satin ribbon.